inspiration comes straight from the source, like burning down cities with a Trojan horse. All dragonflies and butterflies, yeah, all up in the air, keeping track of thoughts. I know we're not there, I know we're unclear. Hold on, hold on, hold on, don't hold on to bad nothings. You should go on without always believing that it's all gone, nothing you can do now. Just hold on, keep track on broken feelings. Hold on, hold on. My mind's unique with a weak holding cell, where thoughts can leak into the unending well. And tears will seldom disappear, will seldom disappear. I'm keeping track of thoughts I know are unclear, I know we're not there, yeah. Hold on, hold on, hold on, don't hold on to bad nothings. You should go on without always believing that it's all gone, nothing you can do now. Just hold on, keep track on broken feelings. There's something inside me that hasn't come out. I'm losing control, I'm painted with doubt. It's not easy to see if you're not from the source, like burning down cities with the Trojan horse, a Trojan horse. Like burning down cities with the Trojan horse. Whoa, whoa. Like burning down cities with the Trojan horse. Hold on, hold on, hold on, don't hold on to bad nothings. You should go on without always believing that it's all gone, nothing you can do now. Just hold on, keep track on broken feelings. Is it true? Is it true to not look like luster and improve what you have to offer? The world is new, no matter what's said. Choose you to become even better. Yeah, just be better. Yeah, yeah. My inspiration comes straight from the source, like burning down cities with a Trojan horse. All dragonflies and butterflies, yeah, all up in the air, keeping track of thoughts. I know we're not there, I know we're unclear. Hold on, hold on, hold on, don't hold on to bad nothings. You should go on without always believing that it's all gone, nothing you can do now. Just hold on, keep track on broken feelings. Hold on, hold on. My mind's unique with a weak holding cell, where thoughts can leak into the unending well. And tears will seldom disappear, will seldom disappear. I'm keeping track of thoughts I know are unclear, I know we're not there, yeah. Hold on, hold on, hold on, don't hold on to bad nothings. You should go on without always believing that it's all gone, nothing you can do now. Just hold on, keep track on broken feelings. There's something inside me that hasn't come out. I'm losing control, I'm painted with doubt. It's not easy to see if you're not from the source, like burning down cities with the Trojan horse, a Trojan the Trojan horse. Whoa, whoa, like burning down cities with the Trojan horse. Hold on, hold on, hold on, don't hold on to bad nothings. You should go on without always believing that it's all gone, nothing you can do now. Just hold on, keep track on broken feelings. Is it true? Is it true to not look like luster and improve what you have to offer? The world is new, no matter what said. Choose you to become even better. Yeah, just be better. Yeah, yeah. My inspiration comes straight from the source, like burning down cities with a Trojan horse. All dragonflies and butterflies, yeah, all up in the air, keeping track of thoughts. I know we're not there, I know we're unclear. Hold on, don't hold on to bad nothings. You should go on without always believing that it's all gone, nothing you can do now. Just hold on, keep track on broken feelings. Hold on. My mind's unique with a weak holding cell, where thoughts can leak into the unending well. And tears will seldom disappear. I'm keeping track of thoughts I know are unclear. I know we're not there. Yeah.
And transition. Oh my God, wasn't that the smoothest transition you've ever seen? I know. Hello everybody and welcome to the zoo. I am the Rusty Panda and I am here for you. Today we've got MOSHKAINE up in the house. Wah, 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 wah.
Hi.
Let me test your levels here. Just say hi and hello.
Hello.
Perfect.
Howdy.
Looks good. For all y'all who don't know what Wiki Wednesday is, we basically get 15 things a streamer likes, 5 things a streamer don't like, and we go down the Wikipedia rabbit hole, learn a few things about what the streamer likes, and go on from there. So this will be a fun 2-hour session for those of you who have not been here before, and for those of you who have, thanks for coming back. All right, so let's start out with saying that I've known MOSHKAINE for a very long time. We are IRL buddies, so that's pretty cool. That doesn't happen very often in the Twitchiverse.
No, I mean, I'm friends with several people who stream personally, but I mean, I think you were actually on Twitch before, like Captain and I, so.
Yeah, I joined Twitch about 3 years ago, and I was on Mixer for 2 years prior to that, so yeah.
I was on Mixer for quite a while. I mean, I was on Twitch a long time ago doing like Warcraft streams to like one person and their dog for a long time.
Right.
Like no camera, not even a microphone for like ever, back when it was like Justin TV or something still, but like I never did anything like serious on it until we were on Mixer playing Sea of Thieves forever, because everyone kept going, you guys are idiots, it'd be funny to watch you, get on Mixer, and we did. And then they shut Mixer down and we were like, what the hell are we gonna do? I'm like, well, I've got a Twitch account, and I was like, Nessa's over there too, so we all came over to Twitch.
Perfect. And for those of you who might hear that, he might call me Nessa, and that's okay. No, it's okay. Nessa, Panda, Amanda, I've got a million names as long as you don't call me late for dinner, okay?
The problem with being personal friends with people on the internet you stream with and stuff sometimes, because you're like, I'm just going to dox the hell out of you.
Right. Yeah, no, it's okay. Am I allowed to mention Dagger here, or are we?
Yeah,
Okay, cool. I just want to make
I'm
sure.
generally pretty open as long as you don't, talk about the wife and kids too much.
That's fair. So we met through a sport called Dagger here. For those of you who don't know, and I could just go ahead and Dagger here. Oh, good, it's on here. Wow, that looks like our field.
It probably is.
That's crazy.
That is our field.
Yeah.
That's it's like Grumio sitting there. Maybe not. But
yeah.
Those are orcs.
Oh
those are orcs. 100%. That's an old picture.
Wow.
Yeah, that's Grumio.
Oh my god, I miss him. Look at this. Look at this photo. Wow.
I'm gonna send that to him later.
Yeah, definitely do that. And I'm trying to figure out who's in the background here. It's got a Mercridian symbol on him.
That's Orin, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow, these pictures are gold. I don't know if we created this wiki or what, but we might as well have. So Dagger here is a sport. It's considered a live-action role-playing battle game, but it's full contact, ranged contact, and basically we use foam weapons, but they're usually PVC core or what's the other core?
I mean, there's PVC, fiberglass. We use other stuff now, like those what's it, the fiberglass golf shaft and stuff. I don't know. I've been gone for a while.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to say where we're from. And we do camping. That's funny. I hovered over live action role playing, and the first thing that shows up is dice, D20s. But yeah, so this is how we met. We had lots of camping events that happened and occurred. Lots of practices that occurred. And a lot of fun. A lot of drama, but a lot of fun. And so that's how we met. So I'm going to go back a page here and say that there are a lot of niche from people who are who like sports like Dagger here. And ironically, or not ironically, I don't know why I said ironically, blacksmithing is one of them. We have several, if not more than a handful of blacksmiths who come out of sports like such. And, blacksmithing clearly came first. But it's nice to see because then we're able to share our interests again in a like climate. So tell me about blacksmithing. Tell me about why you put it on this list.
Traditional blacksmithing was something I was always really interested in. I grew up kind of on a farm, kind of half on a farm, in a split house. My dad was from the country, lived on a farm. My mom didn't. So when I would be up with him, we did a lot of metal work, working on farm equipment and stuff like that. So I learned how to weld pretty early on, and metalworking has been something I've done, as a career for a long time and stuff like that. So I had done, a little bit of just utility smithing on stuff, but when I got into like DAG and reenactment stuff, I saw people like actually blacksmithing and was like, hey, I want to do that. So during, I had done some of it here and there, but I never really kind of dove into it. And then during the pandemic, I was sitting around, kid and I was watching like a Forged in Fire, like marathon or something. And he was like, we should do this. And I was like, well, we're stuck in the house. Why not? So, I got a little forge and an anvil, and we, beat metal around, and it's been pretty good. Made some cool stuff.
What stuff have you made?
I made a couple knives. I made, I don't have it. It's laying around here somewhere. I've made a couple bottle openers and, just stuff. I'm a very utilitarian person. So I'm always making things for like around the house, or like my grandfather finished a lot of, like antique furniture and stuff. So she has a lot of the furniture and yard stuff she has is antique. And she has like a swing that is really old. I don't know how old this thing is. It's got to be 100 years old at least. And it's got chains that hold the swing up, but it's got these hooks on them. And the hooks started snapping off. So I forged some new hooks for that so that it would still be kind of traditional, you know. So it's
That's
nice
so
to be able to be like, oh
cool.
yeah, this is cool. I can just go out in the garage and make that. Or like,
Yeah.
oh, I want, you know, I want a fork or a bottle opener. I'm just like, cool, I'll just go make one, you know.
Now, do you make have you gotten to the point where you're making like elaborate type things, or is it just utility like bottle opener that
Not
opens a
super
bottle?
elaborate. I mean, I like making knives from scratch. A lot of people like take the blanks and kind of grind them out and stuff. I like taking like the raw chunk of like square metal and beating it out, you know, stretching it out and putting like the blade bevel on it and everything. Like even if I don't finish it, the act of doing that, it's very therapeutic. Like it's like cooking, if that makes, you know, it's like some people like when they cook, it's like, oh, it's therapeutic and it gives you like a sense of accomplishment or something. But like when you're done with it, you look at it and like, wow, you know, I did that. Or
Yeah.
you know, because it takes a lot of effort to, I mean, a lot of people will watch like Forged in Fire or something like that and go, oh, that's not that bad. It's like, yeah, stand over a, you know, 800-degree forge and beat a hot piece of metal for like 2 hours and tell me, you know, it's super simple. So um but yeah, I really enjoy um,
I was trying
that
to
aspect of it.
bring up
I mean,
Forged in
I love
Fire.
making things with my hands anyway. That's always how I've been.
That's true. You built a lot of stuff from what I've
Yeah.
seen. So I brought up Forged in Fire because a lot of people might not know what that is. It is in fact a television show. It's a reality competition. Um, seasons 1 through 7, seasons 8 through present. So it's still going.
Yeah, it's still on the air. And as
That's
far as reality TV shows like of this sort of type, this show is actually really fantastic. Like all the hosts are good. There's never really any drama. It's always about, you know, the craftsmen usually and, you know, what they're making, and they don't try to overdo it really. You know, there's some, you know, they add the dramatic music and flair sometimes, but it's always, you know, people making stuff with their hands, and that's what the show's about. So I really enjoy it.
and that's on the History Channel.
Mhm.
That's
It's a really
amazing.
good show to watch.
That's
But
awesome.
we watch a lot of stuff, you know, me and the kid. Um, I've always watched stuff like that, like how it's made. Uh, there was a point in my life where my wife looked at me and said, I cannot watch another episode of How It's Made, because I would turn it on and that's all I would watch for like a week straight. No matter what I was doing, I could be like playing Warcraft or, you know, whatever the case. I had How It's Made going on the television, and she was like, I cannot do this anymore. And because I love it, you know, because I
Yeah.
work in manufacturing. So, you know, I love all that.
Right. And yeah, I would watch How It's Made on repeat. I mean, just all through. Even if you felt like you've seen it, like it doesn't matter, you'd watch it again. Like it's
Oh, yeah.
just
Yeah.
so it's like HGTV. It's kind of like in the background and you're like, "Oh,
It's
they
like,
made a house." And then
it's like manufacturing ASMR to me. Like I honestly, because it's kind of like a factory that I work in, and it's like there's noise all the time, even though I'm in like an office and like a bubble inside the factory essentially. But I have headphones on when I'm working, but I'll turn How It's Made on like YouTube and just let it go while I'm working all day. You know, just
yeah, I
because
just
why
learned
not?
some shit. That's good. And then also, what was the other one? Dirty Jobs. Did you like that one?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a good show. Yeah, because that show really, there's not a lot of things that show like normal day to day people doing dirty jobs, you know, and I've done some dirty jobs. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, this I didn't know that a lot of these jobs existed. And so this to me was kind of like a wake up of just a lot of blue collar type
well, yeah,
jobs.
a lot of people, especially nowadays, you know, growing up in an urban environment, a lot of people don't realize how, like, what the blue collar industry really is like. A lot of it, because a lot of that stuff is outside of like the urban areas. Um, and since I kind of grew up outside of that, that's there are no white collar jobs when you go a certain distance away from the suburb. You know, you get in the suburbs, there is still some, but you get a certain distance out, there is no white collar.
Right.
You might have a couple people, but you know, that's it. Everybody else is blue collar.
Yeah, and one of the episodes I'll always remember is the guy who flushes out porta potties. And like cleans them out at every event. When we get a new porta potty that's cleaned out, I'm like, that guy, man, I want to tip that guy. Like he knows what he's doing.
So, a job I had for a couple of years, I worked for an industrial hog farm.
Okay.
And I was a pressure washer, among other things, but that was my main job. So like these big hog barns, it's all inside. They're not outside at all. And so they're just inside, and it's just all mud and pig shit and everything else. It's just everywhere. It's covering everything. The walls just all over the place. My job was to basically go in there with a power washer and just power wash everything down. I did that all day, every day, for a long time. And that was one of those jobs where you leave, like you go into like a contamination thing and shower out, and you get home and you still smell like it.
Oh,
like,
gosh. Oh, man. Were you single at the time, or?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was definitely single at that time.
Okay, that's good.
But I mean, my roommate, you know, he was married. I lived with a friend and his wife, and he worked there. You know, we worked together in the same barn, and you know, I mean, that's just the life out there. Some people, I mean, that's the life they live.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, I guess it's better with friends, right?
Yeah.
At least.
Well, I mean, I get people at work that look at me and they're like, "Oh, this sucks," and I always look at them and say, "You know what? It's better than shoveling hog shit." And they're just like, "What?" I'm like, "Trust me, it's better. You're better off."
It's literally better. Like, I'm not just saying that. Like, it's literally better. All right, so we're going back to things that you make with your hands. So I know you're doing blacksmithing, but have you done any woodworking too, or in that sort of Okay, so tell me about some of the woodworking stuff you've done.
I mean, in my adult life, I haven't done a lot of woodworking, but my grandfather, who was kind of a father to me because my father wasn't really around. And I didn't really even have a stepdad until I was, I don't know, 5, whatever the case may be. So I lived with my mom and my grandparents. My grandfather kind of raised me, and he had polio and was in a wheelchair, but he was, you know, he worked all the time and he was very handy. So he liked to rebuild furniture and stuff like that. Wow. So on his back porch, he had a wood shop. So I spent a lot of time out there in the wood shop with him. So yeah, I did that. I did, you know, all through high school, I did all the wood shop classes and everything. I built gun cases and all sorts of stuff. So, but I've done things like I've refinished dressers and, you know, things like that. So general woodworking stuff, yeah, I'm pretty good at. I've got, you know, all the tools and everything. So got my grandpa's tools and all that. So
you had me at gun casing. So this is where New Jersey and wherever the hell you grew up is different. So what my brother learned to do was like salad bowls and a seat that comes together. How does one make a gun casing?
So a gun case, it's just like it holds guns like a guitar case.
Okay.
It was essentially a guitar case for guns. And it was the one that I made was designed to like slide under a bed. So it didn't really have like latches or anything on it. It just went under there. It had like a blanket on the bottom, but I made it out of like, it was like nice walnut, you know, really nice for my dad. It had like his deer rifles and stuff in it.
That's so cool.
But yeah, so I made that in high school, and my high school, being a rural Midwestern high school, you know, in the early 90s, guns out there are like commonplace. There's not really a stigma behind them. pull up at the gas stations. They've got them in the back window of their pickup truck. I mean, we could go deer hunting in the morning and then go to school, and you could take your deer rifle to school with you, pull the bolt out of it, turn the bolt in at the office, and put your deer rifle in your locker.
Wow.
So, and I mean, it was just normal.
Yeah.
But it's just a culture thing, you know. And you know, I don't want to get political or anything, but it's just that's how I grew up around all that.
Yeah.
So you know, something like if you go to a woodshop class and you're like, oh, I want to build a gun case, you know, your shop teacher's like, cool, yeah, let's do it. No problem. You know, what are you shooting? You know, and he knows, you know, he'd know exactly what it was. So
That's great. Oh, wow. Man, that's a really good story. And a gun case. I'm still not over that. It's just like the salad bowl versus the gun case. Like, that's all I can compare it to. It's just like, and he was so proud of that salad bowl. And I'm sure you were so proud of your gun case.
you know, I was sure it was so I could have made a salad bowl, and I'll tell you right now, I didn't want to, because that was one of the things that they were like, yeah, you could do this. I was scared of the lathe. Because a piece of wood spinning that fast, I had seen someone take a chip off of one and it like hit him in the face or something, and I was just like, I'm not touching that thing. So
trying to spell, how do you spell lathe?
Lathe, I think. Laythe. I don't know.
Lay. No, I can't find it. It's fine. I was trying to see what it would be.
Lathe, lathe.
I don't know why it's not in here.
It's basically just a thing you stick wood or metal or something on, and it just spins it really fast, and then you use like a chisel, and then you just kind of shave stuff off of it.
I've used them before, weirdly enough, to make a cudgel. My grandpa had one in his workshop, and my boyfriend at the time came down to Florida with me, and we were trying to figure out what we would want to make. And so we just had a thing of wood, and it was just a thing of wood. So it was just easy to be like, okay, this can be a cudgel because it's round and you just keep working at it and, you know, whatever. And so I still have it by my bedside in case anyone comes in. I'm going to go ahead and do the cudgel. You're clicking around stuff.
Yeah, it's funny because that's, you know, that was high school, and that was one of the times when I was really like getting into music and starting out playing guitar and stuff. And that's how I met one of my really good music friends. Was in woodshop. I walked in and he was making drumsticks on the lathe, and I was like, oh, that's cool, man, you know, and we started talking and stuff.
That's cool. I don't know why I didn't realize that drumsticks would go on a lathe. That's the most obvious thing. Okay, so blacksmithing, woodworking. What about, okay, so you were talking about guitar cases. Now, have you ever tried to make like a guitar case or something along those lines, or even like a miniature guitar?
No, I haven't tried anything like that. Actually, I've really wanted to get into guitar building for a long time. I've been playing and maintaining them for, you know, what is it, like 30 years now or something. So, you know, I'm at the point where I'm like, you know, I'd really like to, you know, build one. And they've got kits where you can basically order them. You got the bodies, it's all unpainted and unfinished and everything, and you can like build it and finish it up.
Wow.
I'm thinking about kind of starting there, and then, but the thing with like guitars are the necks are really difficult to make. So almost all your necks you have to order from somewhere, because like the guitar necks are, there's several layers to them. You know, you have your back piece that's curved, and then there's a groove in that. You have your truss rod inside of that. Then the top layer, like your ebony top layer on the neck, caps that off. So there's a lot of stuff. Like if you don't get one of those things right, you're screwed.
So who's the
Um,
one that makes the neck? Is there like only one
a lot of
company or?
no, there's a lot of companies that make them. There's a company if you look up Warmoth, it should be just how it sounds, WARMOTH. They've been selling custom guitar parts for ages, like since the 80s or something. Um, and I've known people who built several guitars off of Warmoth. But you can buy, pre-done necks, bodies and hardware and all that stuff from them.
It told me to come here for Warmoth guitars, but it does not have its own thing, which is very
I have.
disappointing.
Here, I'll send you the link. Actually, with these guys. There you go. But yeah, I've highly been considering it for a long time. It's a lot of it. I mean, it's just money. It's an investment. But like making guitar bodies can be done relatively easily because the bodies aren't really that difficult to do. It's just space and you need bigger equipment. Like I have routers and stuff like that, but I don't have like a planer or something. You know,
So they'll give you the necks and then you could work from there.
Yeah, well, you can buy like everything: bodies, necks, pick guards. You can buy all your hardware from them. You can basically order an entire guitar from them and build it to like an IKEA bookshelf.
That's awesome. I feel like I would mess that up so hard.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I've been working on them for a long time. I've built, some out of like random parts that I've like. I used to buy guitars on Craigslist when Craigslist was real popular. So I would buy like really crappy used guitars on Craigslist and then bring them home, fix them up, do a tune up on them essentially, and then resell them.
Oh,
Wait like 2 3 weeks so that the original posting kind of falls off, and then resell that one and make money off of that. And that was kind of a side job for me for a while.
that's really smart. I actually got my very first guitar off Craigslist. It was
Yeah, Craig
it
used to
was a
be. I mean,
very basic one.
it's not that great nowadays, but Craigslist was a gold mine back when it was,
Yeah.
before the big Craigslist scandals,
Mhm.
when everything moved over to Facebook Marketplace. But
Right. But yeah, I got my first guitar and it was what do they call it? Like a 777 or something like that, where like it's basically a smaller guitar. Right? So they would say like a
uh,
children's guitar, but like it's just
mm,
smaller for people with smaller hands. Um and so that's what I
like the
learned
acoustic,
on. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah.
And that's what I learned on. And then all of a sudden, just recently, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get a real size guitar because I want to be like, normal. And I got it and I was like, this is so much harder. I hate the C note. Like, I can't get my fingers right. So, needless to say, that has made it difficult in my journey of guitar. But
Well, if
you,
you're having issues with it, like a lot of times, especially if you buy a used guitar, especially acoustics, like the necks will need to be adjusted sometimes because you like start out at a smaller guitar, one with like a nice quick action or whatever. If you buy acoustics, they'll sit around people's houses for ages and lean them up against the wall and everything, so the necks will bow, which is natural for a guitar, but you have to adjust the truss rod and bow them back. My acoustic, uh, I've owned that thing for 20 years or more than 20 years. And it got to where I couldn't even barely play it. And I was like, man. And then I was like, oh, yeah, I need to adjust the truss rod. And I finally did that last week and was like, oh, this thing plays great now. So, yeah, it's, I forget. I mean, I had to move 6 guitar cases just to put my green screen up tonight because I've got stuff all over the basement right now.
uh yeah, I gave it to a friend of mine who said that I needed to sand I got this. The frets on the
Mhm.
sides are sharp, and that I needed to get those like sanded or something so that way they're not as rough. And then, but he retuned the whole thing. He put on all new strings, um, because I broke my E string, and he's like, "We just need to string the whole thing. We're not giving you just one E string." And retuned it and did everything, but it's a user error when it comes down to it. It's not. It's
Well,
you.
if
You
you
just have
need
to
your
teach me.
if you need your fret sanded or something like that, I happen to know a guy.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. I'll have
so
to bring it
I
up.
literally just redid a fret job on one of my old electrics. Like it's sitting over here on my workbench. So.
I think I need to get into electric guitar over acoustic because I feel like it's so much easier.
Well,
Like,
with technology nowadays, like I bought an amp. Uh, it's been about 2 years ago, called the Positive Grid Spark amp, and I saw this thing and I was like, "That's really neat." And what it is, it's a practice amp. It's just a little practice amp. It's about the size of a, I don't know, it's not very big. It's about the size. It's like a case of pop, about 2/3 as long as a case of pop, and about that size. And I can control it with my phone. So I can literally program it. I can be like, "Hey, I want to sound like Van Halen today," and go, "Oh, here's a Van Halen preset," and program it to do that. And it's got Bluetooth headphones, and you can
wow.
Bluetooth your headphones to it and everything. Like it's super neat, and I love that thing.
That's
And
amazing.
I usually don't play
Technology.
in the living room much, but I just moved it up to the living room so I can sit there on the couch, put my headphones on and sit there and play guitar while, she's watching TV or whatever.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I'm so jealous. I need an electric guitar. I think that's what it comes down to. And then I think that'll be able to get it into the computer easier because I have an
Yeah.
electric acoustic, right? So I can get it into the computer. But I need, if I had an electric, I think that it'd be easier to make the sounds because you don't have to press as hard to make the sounds on
Yeah.
an electric.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
So I
If you
feel
have,
like,
yeah, a good action or something.
right, and I just see people when they play, they just kind of move up and down the fretboard for like metal music and stuff. Whereas for me, I'm like,
Well, most of my stuff that I do now, I don't use an amp much anymore. I use a DI box, a direct input box that I got from Guitar Center for like, I don't know, $80, something like that. And I have an amp sim that I use that just turn it on. It's a virtual amp. And I just run my headphones so I can run it through my computer so I can listen to a YouTube video and play along with it. It's got everything I need right there. And if I'm recording, I can actually import that amp sim into my recording program
oh
and
wow,
just port it in as a track. So I can import like a drum track and then record over the top of that. And then I've got all my amp stuff right there. Like I don't have to mic anything. I can be recording at 1 o'clock in the morning and nobody will know. And
that's
it's full
epic.
volume, it's great.
Yeah, I just have
Technology is really, it's great stuff.
the plug into the USB to the computer.
Mhm.
So that's all I have. I don't have no special amps, but I'm gonna need to
Well, I'm
No, I
yeah.
mean saying I need to contact you and talk to you
No,
about this.
this is what I use right here.
That's
It's a
crazy.
just a Line 6. I had a thing called a Line 6 pod for years where it had a program that would pull up that would just have your amp stuff on it. And last time I plugged it in, it literally sent me a message and was like, "Hey, we don't support this anymore. Like you really need to just go buy something else." I'm like, "But I've used this for 15 years." And I sent a
That's
message
the
to
point.
support and they're like, "Yeah, that thing doesn't work." They're like, "Unless you got something with like Windows ME on it, like it's not gonna work." I'm like, "Okay." So I had to go buy a new one.
Windows ME. That's great. Um, all right, so let's stay on the topic of music. I'm going to assume, and just please don't be wrong. White Zombie, is that a
Mhm.
musician?
Yeah, that's a band.
Oh, thank God. Okay, I was waiting for it to be like, no, it's a shot, and I'll be like, great, that's great.
Well, do you know who Rob Zombie is?
Yes.
Rob Zombie was the singer for White Zombie, and then he
Okay.
left to go do his own thing. So
Okay. Yeah, I recognize these faces. I recognize the faces. Because these are... Okay. Yeah, 1985 to 1998. So tell me. Tell me why it's here.
Uh, so, you know, every musician's like, oh, this one band, like everyone's like, oh, Kiss was, you know, the thing that I just loved going to see Kiss or Grateful Dead or whatever. And for me, it was White Zombie. Like, you know, I, like I said, grew up in a real small town, like super small. We had our record store was essentially the back corner of a liquor store that the guy would go down to like the city once a month and pick up a bunch of CDs and tapes and bring them back. And you know, it was just starting getting into metal. Like me and my best friend, like we listened to like Metallica and some stuff. We're like, oh, that's cool. And I was walking through there and I saw the album cover for Les Exorcisto. It's Les Exorcisto Devil Music Volume 1 was the name of the album. And it's all like super psychedelic. Yeah. And I saw that and was like, that's cool as shit. And I was like, well, this is gonna be like some crazy like 60s jam stuff. And I got it and was like blew my mind. Um the stuff that's on that album like just absolutely blew my mind. I was like, I can't believe that they were able to do something like this. And at the time, like it was just unheard of, like doing something like that.
And what
And
is
so
something like that?
it's just they used a lot of studio tricks and stuff on the album. So they made recording studio music essentially, where you know there's one guitar player, but he had like 5 tracks where there'd be 5 guitars doing all sorts of crazy stuff, and they had like samples going from like you know movie samples from like Night of the Living Dead and all this crazy stuff going on, and you know just it's really good stuff, really crazy. You know, for 1995, you were just like, what the hell is this? Like, what's going on?
Right.
And then I was watching, because we used to watch Beavis and Butthead like religiously. And then all of a sudden, this video came on and was like, what the hell is this? And we're like, oh, it's that White Zombie band. Holy shit, you know? And so I had that album um, in my bedroom. I had, you know, just a little CD player, the little flip top CD player with speakers on it. And I put that album in because I bought it like, it was like a week before school got out that summer. That CD, I hit play on it. I never stopped that CD the entire summer. It was on repeat. All I would do was turn the volume down on the CD player, walk back in my room later, turn the volume back up. That CD spun for the entire summer of that summer. And I want to say it was like 94 or 95, whatever it was yeah. So yeah,
Wow.
that kind of was like the thing and I would sit down every night and grab my guitar and go, okay, let me try to figure. And that was like the first year I started playing. It was like really bad, but just yeah, that was my thing. And then I saw them every time they came to town for probably 4 years straight, until they kind of disbanded. And I would drive, you know, like, oh, that's 6 hours out. Cool, I'm going. You know, and I
Right.
would go see them. So and that it would be nothing for me to be like, oh, I get off work at, you know, whatever, I gotta get off at 2 o'clock so I can drive, you know, half a state over to see this band, and then get home at 3 o'clock in the morning and get up and go to work the next day. That was like my, you know, from the time I was like 16 and I could drive until probably, you know, mid 20s or whatever.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's dedication. And
So yeah, I was like my, you know, like Grateful Dead groupie, as I was like a White Zombie groupie. You know, I'd pretty much follow them around, and I mean, incidentally, that's kind of how I started listening to Pantera. Also, was um, they were really good friends with those guys and toured with them a lot. So
tell me about Pantera.
Pantera, man, that's a topic right there. Like as far like every guitar player has, you know, their hey, these are my big influences, and like Jay Younger from White Zombie, um, Dimebag Daryl from Pantera, and James Hetfield from Metallica. Those are like my big three. And when I started listening to Pantera, it was another one of those things. It was like, how the hell is this guy making these noises? Like, how is he doing this? It's not humanly possible to do what he's doing. You know, it's like how everybody back in the 80s was like, and Eddie Van Halen was, you know, doing stuff, and like Randy Rhoads, and they were just like, oh my God, it's so good. Like, watching Dimebag play was on another level. Like, he was just on a completely different level than like normal human beings when it came to playing guitar. And that's when, like, I was decent and I was playing a lot, but when I started watching them play live, and they put out like a home video or several home videos of them like on tour, and it was just complete mayhem. Like, you watch these home videos and it's like, you have no idea how these guys were just in prison, but they're just on the road, like drinking whiskey and, you know, playing shows.
Right.
But me and, you know, a couple other musician friends of mine, we would sit around, watch these like home videos of these guys, and just listen to their music and play their stuff. Also, it was just really, really influential on, you know, it's that time of your life where like in between 16 and 21, where you're not sure what's going on, but you have a bunch of time because you have nothing else better to do.
Right.
I spent all that time, like, you know, other than, you know, underage drinking and way too many recreational drugs at the time, you know, just playing guitar. That's all I did, was go to concerts and play guitar.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's was, you know, Pantera was one of those things where it's like, hey, I relate to these guys. They're really badass. They're down to earth. You know, they're not like, you know, you see some bands and just like, oh, we're, you know, better than everybody. These guys are like, we suck just as much as you do. You know, we're going to come kick ass. And yeah, they have probably one of the biggest followings. Like,
that I was looking at the 2002 present reformation with a new lineup, and it's funny because I just went to the Kansas concert. There was
yeah,
like two people who were from the original band, you know, and you're like, do you
yeah.
still call it Kansas? And it
Well,
says, do you
yeah.
feel comfortable calling it Pantera?
Well, like Dimebag as a guitar player, Daryl, like he was a hero to a lot of people guitar wise, especially like sort of my little guitar player generation, those guys that grew up in like late 80s early 90s really kind of playing guitar. And there weren't guitar heroes and like that little section. We had Metallica, Slayer, and a
Right.
couple other bands, and that was it. Like, we didn't have like an Eddie Van Halen, you know. It was like Kirk Hammett from Metallica. Cool. That, you know, he's amazing. He's one of my favorites. But when Pantera came out and Dimebag came and started playing, everyone was like, who's this guy? Like, you know, nobody else is doing this. So he kind of became like a hero to a lot of people. And just the way he was, you know, with fans and just as a person, he was just a great person. And so like he was extremely loved by a lot of people. Him and, you know, his brother Vinny, and they were just amazing people on top of being stellar musicians.
Yeah.
And then I think it was 2006 maybe, uh
2004.
2004, yeah, when this crazy dude went into a club and, you know, shot him on stage. And that was one it like it was crazy. It was one of those things where, you know, I was sitting in the car. I was a delivery driver for the local college for their print shop or something, delivering paper. You know, and I heard that, and it was like, it hurt.
Yeah.
So it was like, you know, someone who you looked up, someone you generally look up to is kind of like a hero, kind of like a role model, but not quite. But like, you know, when you see people like that, you're like, it gives you something to aspire to and go, I want to try to become that level of something. And they just disappear. It kind of cuts you down a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
I was reading all that, and as you were speaking, and I couldn't imagine how you were going through when you're talking so highly of him, what that would have meant to you. So,
Yeah, I mean, he just as like a person and a guitar player, he impacted my life like a lot, quite a bit actually. So
all right. Well, let's take this for what it is, and then we're gonna move to a little bit different music, cheer up the mood just a smidge, and tell me the. You said Pantera, White Zombie, and then you had what was it? Metallica was the other one, or what was the
mhm.
third? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Along that, like Metallica, like the first time I heard like heavy metal music, when I grew up in like a very conservative, you know, kind of Christian conservative area. But my mom listened to a lot of records and stuff, and she always had like, Heart and Journey and things like that. So I'd, pull out the vinyls and pull out the records. And one of my favorites was like Heart,
Journey, sure.
and Journey and stuff like that. And like the heaviest thing I'd ever heard was like maybe some AC/DC and like ZZ Top because my dad listened to that stuff. And then, in high school or like around middle school ish is when I go to the skating ring a lot and watch MTV and was like start to listen to like Nirvana and stuff. I was like, oh, this is cool. I like Smells Like Teen Spirit was real edgy at the time, because grunge was around. And then all of a sudden, freaking, they'd play Smells Like Teen Spirit, and then all of a sudden, a bunch of dudes in all black get up there and start playing like Sad But True, Metallica start playing. You're like, what the hell is this? Like, and then someone in school was like, oh, you like that? And they handed me, we used to, dub cassette tapes all the time. That's how we all traded music, and just handed me this cassette tape, and it was Metallica Black Album. And, I'd walk around with my Walkman on the bus and everything. And that's what I listened to for like a year straight, was just that. And then like 6 months later, dude was like, oh yeah, well, here's another one. And gave me like Injustice for All. And he just kept like feeding them to me. I was like, what is this
He's
stuff?
A pusher.
Yeah. And I mean, he was him and another guy, he was like a grade over me, but he was a drummer, and this other guy was a guitar player, and they would get together in band every day, and they would play like Leonard Skinner covers and stuff like that, but they'd start jamming on stuff. But yeah, that's kind of was my like pre-catalyst. Everything music related was like, oh, here's this, you like that, that's cool, here, take this tape, kid, and listen to this. And I was just like sitting on the bus wide-eyed, like just blown the fuck away. And I remember a week later, it was like a week after I got it, my dad had this huge stereo back when like stereo speakers were like this big, and had the big record player on it and everything. And we lived out in the middle of nowhere. Like you could blow something up in the front yard and nobody would know. And he left for work, and I was like, in the morning, I had like 45 minutes before the school bus came. So I threw this cassette tape in and I just cranked it up. And I'm in there like making myself a peanut butter sandwich or something for breakfast. And remember my dad came in and got so mad he turned that off, and he goes, I can hear this shit like half a mile away down the gravel road while I'm driving. Like, that is way too loud. I'm like, but it sounds good, So. But yeah, James Hetfield, the frontman for Metallica, was like, I didn't really have a dad much. My dad was always gone, and my stepdad was kind of a dick. And so, seeing like that dude, I was like, that guy's fucking cool. I want to be like that guy. So that was my first. I was like, I want a black guitar. I want this, and like I have it. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Like I'm doing some work on it right now, but like the first guitar I ever walked into a shop and got was this dude right here. And
Wow.
I remember I walked in and saw it, and because James always played he played an Explorer, Gibson Explorer, and those things are like, you know, $3,000. And I was like, 16-year-old kid. I walked into Guitar World, you know, with $100 in my pocket, and was like, I need to buy a new guitar because I was playing this really crappy like Series 10, you know, something. And I saw this sitting there on a thing, like in the used section, like on a guitar stand. And it was one of those things where it's like the light came down and shined on it. And I walked in and saw it and was like, this is it. This is the one. And I remember I had to put it on layaway.
Oh, wow.
Gave the dude the $100 bill in my pocket and was like, I'll be back, you know, in like 2 weeks or whatever. And it took me a month to pay it off. Yeah, I played it so much. I actually had to just redo the frets because I had indentions in the frets where I had pushed them down so much that.
Holy crap.
But it's been sitting in a case for years and years. And I was like, you know, I need to pull this thing out and work on it. So.
Now, tell me what this means. 81 active pickups.
Those are 81 EMGs. So active pickups are battery powered. They kind of boost the signal going to the amp. They pre-boost it to make it. It doesn't make it louder because the amp does that. It's the signal that goes into the amp. It boosts it a little bit to make it like fuller.
Got it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like if you had an acoustic guitar that you like made it bigger so it amplified the sound more, kind of make it sound fuller. It's kind of what it does.
Okay.
And back when those were made, back in the 80s, when those were originally designed, like nobody had anything like it. So like high gain metal guitars, an EMG 81 pickup back then was like the holy grail, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, popular hard rock and heavy metal musicians of the 1970s and 1980s. That's crazy. Yeah, it looks cool. Yours looks cool. I like it. I like like it says, futuristic style. I like how that looks. Is it weird to hold?
No, it's actually ridiculously comfortable, especially if you're sitting down, because that groove, the big groove, sits in your leg. Or like the back piece, I'll actually sit it up. Because the ones that I normally play, like you call them stage guitars or whatever, that, you know, my last band and whatever that I gigged a lot, I played Dean ML style guitars like Dimebag did, because I bought one. I'd always wanted one, and I bought one back when I was like 22 from Guitar Center, brand new, first brand new guitar I ever bought. Paid like $800 for it. And it was amazing. And like 3 weeks later, my apartment got broke into and it got stolen. And I was like, you know, my dream guitar, you know, just gone. And so years went by, and you know, got married, had kids, whatever. And then I got one from if you remember Chaos from DAG, it was like, hey man, I got this guitar, and you know, give me like $50 for it. Like the neck was broken, somebody fixed it, and like the headstock had broke. It was a NML. It was like a real cheap model, whatever. And I got to playing, and I was like, I love this thing. Like it's comfortable to play because it's like a Flying V, but it's got the front thing. Or if you just Google like Dean ML or Wiki that, so it's kind of like an X, and people are like, oh, that looks uncomfortable, but actually it's the most comfortable guitar to play if you're like sitting down, because you put your leg, that back V, like your leg sits in that, and then it all just kind of fits perfectly. To me, it's more natural than a regular guitar when you're like sitting down, because you're not like, you know, over here somewhere. Because I sit down in a chair, so it like props it up, and you know. So yeah, that's what I normally play. So I've got a couple of those for Christmas one year, because Washburn made all the guitars that Dimebag played for years, and he had a contract with them because Dean made the originals, and you know, whatever. So he went to Washburn, and Washburn lost the contract because Dean Guitars came back into business or whatever. And they made like one last like push to get a bunch out, and they had some customs. And I went up to Funky Monkey Music, and they had one. It was snow camo, and I have this weird obsession with camouflage that my wife hates. But I saw it and I was like, I've never seen one like that before. I have to have it. And I kept talking about it and kept talking about it. And we're sitting there and she goes, I don't know what to get you for Christmas. So get in the car. We're going and we're going to go buy that guitar. And I was like, are you serious? And I have never like gotten dressed and got in the car faster in my entire life. And we drove up there and I had a permanent smile on my face for like a month. And still to the day, like that's my favorite guitar. It's plays great. And there's only like 50 of them made, I think. So
Oh, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Well, that sounds like the best Christmas present ever. And that looks freaking cool too. All right, so we've done music, we've done guitars, blacksmithing. Let's kind of go a little weird. And let's talk about some nerd stuff like Magic the Gathering.
Magic the Gathering.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, I'm in as like nerd years goes, I'm like 3,000 years old, especially compared to like our group of friends, you know, because I was a little bit older than everybody else kind of when I got in there. I started playing Magic the Gathering. Again, we'll go back to I grew up in like super small town of like 4,000 people, maybe. And one of my best friends was one of the only like 3 people in that town that knew what Dungeons and Dragons was. And we would get together once a week in a friend's basement with Doritos and play Dungeons and Dragons, you know. And he came in one day and he's like, I got this card game. You really need to try it. It's really cool. It's a lot of fun. It's like Dungeons and Dragons with cards. And I was like, okay. So he had 2 decks and we sat down, you know, learned the rules and we started playing. Well, we only had 2 decks. And we would have to like, okay, well, you take this card and I'll take this card and we'll switch it up a little bit. Well, that was when beta started. So that was like second edition beta or first edition beta, whatever, like right when it was really kind of kicking off. So we would drive down, we would have his dad drive us down to the city once a week so that we could buy Magic cards. Because there was nowhere, you know, that we could go. Nobody would have that. So we ended up, and there was a sheet. You would buy them in boxes. They didn't, I mean, they had, I don't even think they had booster packs back then. They were just boxes, like a deck box. And there were expansion boxes or whatever. And it was basically just like 40 cards and 20 lands. And you could just shuffle that together and play. And it was just random stuff. And they had a little pamphlet in there that was a checkbox of all the cards in the set. Well, between us, we had every card in beta, every single one of them. And when I left, I was like, hey, I'm moving back down to my mom's because I was like, 17. I was like, I want to go back to the city. I'm tired of living in the middle of nowhere. I was like, hey, man, I don't know anybody down there really. Here, have my Magic cards. Oh. And so I gave him all of them. Well, fast forward, like, I don't know, 5 years or something like that. Hanging out with a bunch of friends and like, oh, we've got this cool game you should play. It's called Magic the Gathering. I was like, oh, yeah, I played that, whatever. And I sat down and, started playing. I was like, oh, new cards and everything. I had no idea what was going on. And I was like, I really do enjoy this game. So I went and started buying more cards. And that was right before 5th edition came out. And so I would go and it got me and probably 4 or 5 of my friends would sit there every single day and play Magic. Just get off work. If I wasn't playing guitar, I was playing Magic the Gathering. And it was just, that's all we did. We would sit up till 5 o'clock in the morning and be like, we're going to buy a bottle of whiskey, sit it on the table in between us, and we're all just going to drink this bottle of whiskey and play Magic the Gathering until 5 in the morning and then get up and go to work the next day.
Can I ask a stupid question? How do you play Magic with more than 2 people? I've only ever seen it played with 2 people.
It's the same game. You just go like in a circle. You just go clockwise in a circle,
And
and
do
every
you have,
person goes.
and you can go crossways as far as attacking, right? Like you don't have to
You can
attack the
attack
person.
anybody or go any direction. You can split it up into teams, or how we would play big games with like 10 people.
Oh, wow.
And it would be a big free for all. It'd be great.
What
But
color
then I
is your
started.
favorite?
I played a lot of black and blue. Was my favorites.
All right, I'll let you go. I'm sorry. I had to know because my brother's a huge Magic fan and he likes the blue deck. So.
Yeah. But then I got really good at playing, and me and a couple of friends of mine got really good at playing each other. So we started going to the local shops, and it was really popular back then. Like right when 5th edition came out, and just after 5th edition, like the Tempest Saga, I think they called it. And I started going to tournaments, and then started winning tournaments. I was like, okay. And then so I really dove in, and that's all I did. I played guitar, played Magic the Gathering. Like that's it for like 2 to 3 years. That was my social life. And then I sat down at a table one day. I would spend hours and days and whatever building decks and sorting cards, and eBay didn't exist back then. To get a card, you had to either buy it from a shop or trade it someone or pull it from a pack. You couldn't go online and be like, I want these cards, and order them in and build a deck that way.
Right.
That was the only ways to get them. You had to trade. And I remember I sat down at a table at a tournament, and this like 12-year-old kid sat across from me and killed me in 2 moves.
Wow.
And then I was like, okay, round 2, let's do it again. And he did the same thing. And then he was sorting through cards, and I was looking at his deck, and I was like, this kid's got like a $5,000 deck, and he's 12 years old. And I was like, it killed it for me.
Yeah.
Because I was like, that took like the heart and soul out of the game. That was like part of it. And a lot of older Magic players will talk about that. Is back then that was part of the game. Is you pull a card out of a pack and you're like, wow, this is really rare. I can use this. And if someone went and bought like a meta deck and just like, oh, here's a bunch of money, give me that, and I'm just gonna go play with it. It was just like, cool, pay to win, sort of thing. But that kind of killed my tournament, want to play tournaments, because that was how from there it kind of started going in that direction. Yeah. It became less of a skill thing and more of a how much money did you have to spend thing.
Damn.
I still play recreationally, and I still enjoy it a lot. Got the kid playing some.
That's good. Yeah, Galvos wants to play, so that's when he started playing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we're always trying to get Galvos to come and do things with us. So, maybe Magic will be the thing. I'm just kidding, Galvos. I love you very, very much. So let's go back a second, because you had mentioned Dungeons and Dragons. So let's talk about that as far as the Doritos in your friend's basement. So I had someone previously on Wiki Wednesday who said that they kind of just played like however they wanted to. Like there was some rule set, but there was no like total rule set. How did you play within Dungeons and Dragons you guys first got into it?
So my first experience in Dungeons and Dragons was probably 1985, somewhere in there.
Okay.
I have an uncle. I was kind of raised by my uncles. I have 5 uncles, and they were all like dads to me. But each one of them is different. Like you've got the jock uncle, and then you've got the political uncle, and the musician uncle, and so each one of them was a little different. Well, my nerd game uncle, I spent a lot of time with him, and he was maybe still in high school at the time, maybe just out of high school. So he's kind of lived with my grandparents when I lived there too, I think. And so at night he'd be like, hey, let's do this thing. And he would like be going through like making dungeons basically to play with his friends. And I would be sitting there with him, like rolling dice and like being his play tester, and I was like 8, maybe, 7, something like that. And I was like, oh, this is cool. He's telling me a story and we're doing that. And then he gave me some books. and they were the old like they didn't have like hardcovers. They were all paperbacks that had like holes punched in them for like a 3 reading binder because you'd put them all in a binder, you know, and have all your little books. So he gave me some of those. So then, you know, when I hit like middle school, I started playing. You know, we had like a D&D club because that's when like when I was in middle school was like right about when like the satanic panic thing all kind of happened, and everyone, and I had a really conservative Christian family at the time. Like my stepdad was just like, you know, the devil is gonna get everyone. We're all going to hell, you know,
Right.
all the time. So I had to like hide it. And my mom was like, yeah, cool, just put it over there. Just don't let him see it, you know. So I would go to D&D club at school and we would play like the first we had club in middle school the first 45 minutes when you got there in the morning. So we'd like show up and be like, okay, cool, and we'd play D&D every day. And then I moved back up with my dad in the country in high school, or like 7th grade, I think, is when I went back up there. So from like 7th to like 10th grade or whatever, I found like the 3 people in my small town that were like, yay, D&D, you know. So we would, you know, like I said, get together in my friend's basement, and, you know, his mom would be like, you boys want some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, you know? And we would go down there and like have just really stupid campaigns. Advanced, I still have all my, you know, books, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Um, and it, you know, it's just a lot of fun. And I mean, we would follow the rules and everything, but it was just like, you know, it's all, you know how it is. It's always like DM's discretion. Be like, well, that's a rule, but we're gonna do this today, and we're like, yay, and
Right.
it just be, we just had fun, and that's what, you know, that's what it's all about.
Right.
That's
When
what makes Dungeons and Dragons such a good outlet. Is there's rules, but you don't have to follow them. Who's gonna like the D&D rules police aren't gonna show up at your house and be like, you can't do that, you know? Have a good time with it.
Right. Now, what edition did you start off? Because I'm looking, you said 1985, so I would imagine you'd start with
I
the third
start
edition.
I couldn't tell you what, because there's a lot of little additions in there.
Okay.
And it would have been, I think that, yeah, I had that book right there. That one, the one with the big dragon on it, because that was one of the paperbacks. But it was, yeah, the early, yep, I had that one right there. The blue one that you hovered over, I had that one. Yeah, those were the first ones, and I gave a bunch of those away like a long time ago. Just like, oh hey, this is a, because when second edition came, or we call it second edition, but advanced Dungeons and Dragons came out. They basically redid the rules to where the first edition rules were still there, but they added a bunch of stuff and changed it. And we were like, well, these rules don't matter anymore. So everybody gave all their books away, which now, you know, everybody that did that's like, damn it, I shouldn't have done that.
Right, right.
Um,
Same with the Magic cards, original
yeah, same
beta
with pretty much
version,
everything.
man.
You're just like, oh yeah, I would never need this. 30 years later, you're like, wow, I really wish I had that. But yeah, when it advanced Dungeons and Dragons, the yellow spine books, I think that they were just called Advanced D&D. Yeah, those guys right there. Um, that was the one that like almost everybody back in the early 90s played, because that's all we had.
Right.
We had that. I mean, there was some other stuff we kind of dabbled with. That's when like White Wolf started coming out with Vampire the Masquerade stuff, and we got really big into that. But that was probably 90. That was a little towards the later 90s. Yeah, it was just D&D. There was some other hack and slash stuff, like Cyberpunk was a thing.
Yep.
Like the original Cyberpunk, I remember playing that, and it was pretty crazy.
Have you played, what was it called? Paranoia? Did you play that
It
one?
doesn't sound, no, it
I
doesn't
learned
sound
about
familiar.
that one last week. That one is freaking crazy. That was an RPG. But yeah, that's I learned about cyberpunk and that whole era as well. That's fascinating stuff that it all kind of just stems from Dungeons and Dragons. Just the ability to create with your mind and be able to not really. I mean, is it play pretend? Is it? It's role playing. It's.
I mean, it's role playing to an extent, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, that's kind of where my love of fantasy all kind of started was, back with my uncle just going, "Oh yeah," and between that and like him and I would watch like the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit cartoon, the 1970s cartoon. I watched that all the time. And then I remember my mom took me to a used bookstore. It was called Rainy Days Books, and she was like, "Pick out a book," because I didn't really read. I was a real quiet kid, and I was probably, I don't know, 12 or so. Didn't really read much, and she read. My mom's always reading books constantly. She's like, "Pick out a book. Just pick one out, take it home, whatever." And I looked over and I saw this book with a dragon on it. I was like, "I'm just gonna get this one. I don't know what it is." Um, and it was Dragonlance. And what Dragonlance is it was essentially a book, as a book series that was written based on it was written by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, who worked for TSR Games, which did Dungeons and Dragons. And what it was the book was written based on a D&D campaign that they had done internally, and they had designed these characters for. And it's one of those books, if you love fantasy, like this is one of the it's like the Lord of the Rings to modern fantasy is what this book is to a lot of people. Like it's reading D&D in text form.
Yeah.
A Dungeons and Dragons campaign. It reads out just like that. You got people squabbling, everything's going on. It's an amazing series. At least the first like 3 books. If you enjoy reading and you love fantasy, like this is the one book that I'm always just like, read these books right here. But yeah, I got that and I started reading them, and that's where like my love of fantasy came from. Was cool. I like D&D, but like Dragonlance was the thing that like really solidified that. I started reading. I was like, well, this is freaking awesome. Like this is, a whole new world here.
Yeah. I've never heard of it, so I'll have to look into it. I'm not a big reader
Kind
myself,
of
but
back in the like early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, I think it was a real popular book set. It's kind of died off since then. But as like authors, I still love them as authors. They've written a couple good series.
so okay, so you're talking about fantasy and all that stuff. Let's talk about spaceships. I like how you specifically didn't say space, you said spaceship. And so I'm curious why specifically spaceships.
Um, I was born in 1978, about 2 weeks after the original Star Wars hit theaters. So my uncles, who were a couple of my uncles who were teenagers at the time, went and saw Star Wars and was like, "This is the greatest thing ever," and they saw it like a million times. So from there until the time I was like 3 or 4, I think Return of the Jedi came out when I was probably, I don't know, like 4. Was it 1982, something like that? That was the first movie I ever saw in a theater. It was Return of the Jedi. And so growing up during that time period on television, it was Star Wars all the time. Indiana Jones and Star Wars. Those are the only movies they would show on TV. All my toys were Star Wars toys. So also back then, it was like NASA. There was like the NASA push in the 60s where they were like, we're going to the moon and all this stuff, And in the 70s, they did a little bit of stuff, but not much. But like the early 80s, it was like NASA was really like, we're doing something. We don't know what it is, but we're launching shit into space. So I would watch the spaceship or the shuttles take off. And that was one of my favorite things. I had a giant for Christmas one year, because die-cast cars and everything were really popular back then. The metal die-cast ones. I had a big die-cast, the space shuttle, whichever one it was, I don't know, that all came apart and everything. And that was like my favorite thing. So yeah, Star Wars, like spaceships in Star Wars and like the space shuttle. And it wasn't necessarily space, because space is cool, but it's just big and empty. But it was like the ships were always like super cool. They weren't just airplanes. They were like, you're gonna take this, you're gonna fly to space, and then you can go wherever you want, do whatever you want to do. It's just cool. You can have fights in them and everything. So like
What
all my toys were spaceships and everything.
what about, I know this is dumb, but like what about space stations? Like do you think those are cool in fantasy and stuff? Because I've seen a lot of different things where they're like, oh, in the future we'll have space stations that'll host many people and they'll be able to survive and blah 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 blah.
Stations are cool. I mean, and like space fantasy stuff is, other than like D&D fantasy, I love space fantasy. Uh, I love everything about it. Tons of stuff like Star. I mean, Star. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. It drives my wife's nuts. Like, I'm missing Ahsoka right now because that's how much I love you. Is I'm not watching the new episode
Oh
of
yeah.
Star Wars. um, but just growing up, that was my thing. I've got probably more Star Wars T-shirts than any other like single thing of T-shirts. I have posters and toys and all sorts of shit laying around. So,
Have you ever been to Orlando for the Star Wars
mm.
exhibit? No.
No, like they opened that up, and we always wanted to go, like take boy, but then we were always really broke, and then we were like, oh, we're gonna buy a house, and we finally did that, and we're like, cool, maybe we'll do that, and then COVID happened,
Yeah.
and then
Understood. Life
things with
happened.
things with you know
Life.
yeah, life happened. So,
Yep. 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 Yeah. But tell
and then
me,
they're gonna shut that down. So, like,
they
cool,
are?
I missed it. Yeah, I think. Well, they're not gonna completely shut it down, but I think they're shutting parts of it and most of it down because COVID hurt them really bad, and it didn't quite have the reception that some people wanted.
Interesting. I did not know that. So what? Okay, so we're talking about Star Wars and space shuttles and spaceships. What is your favorite type of Star Wars ship?
That's a hard one. To Probably the Millennium Falcon was always my favorite ship. Because I love dogfighting ships. Like X-wings and Tie fighters always fighting each other and stuff. But there was this one ship that Han Solo had that he could stick all of his friends in, and there was no other ship like it. And they would fly around and just do shit. And it was the Millennium Falcon. I always brag about how fast it was and everything. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. And I had, a big Millennium Falcon toy. And you could open it up and put all your dudes in it, and that was like the coolest thing.
I was trying to find
So
a
yeah, that was
picture.
my.
This is all they have, and I guess it's at the studio, but I was trying to find a picture of it.
Yeah, it's just a big like it's a big spaceship. You pile all your friends in. It flies really fast.
Speaking of which, let's talk about StarCraft. What are you playing with Galvos?
Star Citizen.
Star Citizen.
Star Citizen.
Because StarCraft is coming out, but that's something completely different.
Yeah, yeah. And I like StarCraft, but not as much. Sorry. Well, yeah, Star Citizen. I love this game. It probably drives my friends nuts because they're always like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm flying spaceships. Let me know." But yeah, I when I saw it was like a long time ago, and so the dude that makes that game made a couple other games that I used to love playing, like back in the '80s or '90s, whatever. He was making computer games. This dude Chris Roberts, and I'd played a couple of his other games, like Wing Commander, I think, and some other stuff. And then back in like 2006 or something, he was like, "I'm gonna make this game. It's gonna be the best damn space game ever." And everyone's like, "Yeah, cool, dude. Whatever. Like, go ahead and make your thing." And then like 2016 or something, like 10 years later, I saw something. It was like Star Citizen, and I love like flight simulators, like playing them. Because one of my favorite video games, back to Star Wars, there was a Star Wars like flight simulator game at all the arcades. That was like my favorite thing to do. I could just dump quarters in that thing and play it all day long. And then my stepdad did flight sim stuff on computer where he had a joystick and fly around. I just thought it was awesome. So, you know, I had a joystick and I would play different games, whatever. And then actually, when I met Galpos, we were talking about video games. Like, there's this game, Star Citizen, and he was talking about it. And I was like, I know that game. I haven't played it, but I really know that game. And so, one of the first conversations I think we ever had was about Star Citizen, him and I. And so I started looking it up again, and my computer was crap. All I could do on my computer at the time was I had recording software for music stuff, and it would barely run that, and World of Warcraft, and that's all it would do. And Diablo 2, yeah, World of Warcraft, Diablo 2, it would run those because you can run those on a potato,
Right.
you know. And I kept looking, I was like, man, I need to build a computer so I can play this, and that's when like the first versions of it were coming out, and because it's still in like alpha state, because they're just like, we don't know what we're making, we're just making a thing, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And so it was like right after lockdowns, and I was looking for games to play, you know, playing games with all the ODB guys, and you know how we were just like, we're gonna go do this, we're playing like Red Dead and a bunch of shit, and I was like, I really want a flight sim or something, you know, something I enjoy playing because I've got this new computer. I was like, oh shit, Star Citizen. So I bought into it because you have to like pledge it. It's like it's crowd funded. It's how they get all their funding. So it's almost like doing a Kickstarter essentially, where you're like, give us this much money and you can have this ship or whatever. And my computer barely ran it. Like it was just like really skipping across the screen. So
You should see Galvas try to run it on his laptop. He
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to play it so bad.
I booted it up on my laptop and like I couldn't even move around. I was like, I can't do this. But then I was like, I'm building a new computer, like a good computer. Haven't built a new computer in like 15 years. I'm building a good one. I built a nice computer, and then I bought myself some nice flight sticks, and then sat down and started playing. It was like, this is it. This is what I love doing. And I just go out, fly spaceships, and do stupid shit, and I love it.
And
It's
rescue
like
my husband.
Yeah, it's like it's like my after work zen thing at night. I can just zone out, fly around. I can do whatever I want. It's like you're in space. You have the freedom to do whatever it is you want.
Right.
And that's what I love about it.
Smuggle drugs or
Oh yeah,
whatever you
smuggle
want.
drugs or go blow people up or you know,
whatever you
prison,
want.
whatever you want to do. Eat space burritos, double dogs. It's great stuff.
That's great.
Rescue all my friends, and so Jake, my friends Jake and Jake and Mike, those guys, they started playing, and it's just like, it's like the Benny Hill theme song should be playing in the background the entire time, and it goes back to Star Wars once again. The Millennium Falcon, big ship. The guy has a big ship. He can pile all his friends in. So I've got me a big ship. I can pile all my friends in it, and we just go do stupid shit all night, and I love it.
That's awesome. That's great.
Even if we have a bad night, I still sit there with a smile on my face and hanging out, having a good time with my friends. That's what really matters.
Yeah. And I absolutely love that you guys make it so that my husband goes to bed at 3 a.m. That's my favorite part of that game. No, I'm so glad that he has this community. You have this community of Star Citizen and able to play it with each other. And I think that it's a great outlet for all of you. So happy that you have it. Let's turn a corner here and talk about raccoons. Why? Why am I talking about raccoons?
I think they're great animals. I think they're kind of misunderstood. Out in the country, they're all over the place. There's trash pandas everywhere. Mm-hmm. And they're just in everything all the time. And people, they treat them one way or the other. But at the end of the day, you're just like, they're like stray cats kind of out there. And they just have personality. They're one of the only creatures, like animals, that you find in the wild that has a personality. Like squirrels have personality, but like raccoons have like their own personalities, like they're little people. And I used to clean out grain bins all the time. It was one of my first jobs. I would go out to a grain bin and then have a hole rusted out, and I would like scrape all the grain out and like weld a piece of metal to the side of it. and there would always be raccoons in them. So I would have to like shoo them out, and they'd grumble at me and whatever, and I'd throw food over there, and they'd go over there and sit, and they'd sit there and watch me work. And so I was just, I always liked him. Wanted one as a pet, and I had one as a pet for a little bit, and he was an asshole, and I had to get rid of him. But I was just love as creatures. I think they're great, and they a lot of people look at them and they're like, yeah, this is my spirit animal. I'm like, yeah, raccoon is literally my spirit animal. Like, I have dark circles under my eyes. I can get up and eat trash at 3 a.m. and it's just, that's the look right there. That one right there. That's the look I give people all the time at work. I'm just like,
My mom, when I was younger, used to tell me I had raccoon eyes. That was a real thing. I was like, hey, I'm tired. She's like, I know you have raccoon eyes. I'm like, thanks, Ma. My self-esteem as a 16-year-old is already pretty low.
Like, Marvel movies. I love Marvel movies. And like when Rocket Raccoon came in, I was like, this dude, this is my guy. Like,
right.
He is absolutely my favorite Marvel character.
Let's see here. Skulls of them. Oh, this one's really cute. That's really cute. They are really cute. I mean, in a way, they're really cute. Their little grubby hands are not that great. I'm a little freaked out by their little grubby hands. Good.
They're one of the only animals that like they'll walk up to you, other than like, I guess monkeys, overseas or whatever. But they're kind of like our version of monkeys over here, where you can be like, oh, here, have an apple, and they'll grab it and like run away. One of my co-workers, she, for quite a while, a couple of years, she had a family of raccoons that would come up to her back door, because she lives kind of out a little bit out of town, and she got to where she would feed them, and they would come up all the time, and she'd feed them like marshmallows, and she'd make little like corn cakes for them and stuff, and they would come up all the time and sit there like politely and just be like, okay, here you go, have some food. And it was like her own little raccoon pack,
I want a raccoon pack. Yeah, but seriously, these hands freak me out.
Yeah.
It's just...
And they're not great when they get in your attic, and stuff like that. And
there was raccoon poop in our attic, and that was one of the stipulations when we bought the house. I was like, you have to clean it up because I'm never going in that attic. So...
Well, I mean, that's with any animal. I mean, you could have a buzzard up there or whatever.
Don't say that. Just don't say that.
They're wild animals.
There was a squirrel that's been taunting our cats at the front window. I found out my cat was on the counter, and we're like, "Why are you on the counter?" And she's looking around the corner into the window, and we're like, "What are you doing?" And I just see this squirrel peering through, and we have a sunscreen, and squirrel is just peering through, and I was like, I go like this, and the squirrel sees me and runs away. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Is this a supersonic squirrel? Like, what is happening in this household?"
After we moved in, my wife wanted a bird feeder, and then COVID happened, and I was like, well, I'm not going to go buy a bird feeder. She's like, well, can you do something? I've got this bag of bird feed. And so I went down to the garage, and I basically had some spare wood, and I whipped up it's like a little trough feeder. It's about 12 inches long, and I just screwed it down to the top of the deck railing, and it's just a feeder trough, and we just put bird feed in there. So the birds coming out of it, she had crows that would come around for a while that were her crows or whatever. We've got like 2 or 3 squirrels that just go over there and they eat a bunch of stuff. And it got to where the squirrels, if there's no feed in there, they'll sit there and like stare at it, and they'll look at the window and look over at us. And our bathroom window, you can be in the bathroom and look out the window and see the feeder. And like, you'll look over there sometimes, and there's a squirrel just sitting there like looking at you like, are you gonna feed me or not? Like, okay, you fat bastard, I'll fill the trough up for you,
Making eye contact with a squirrel while you're on the shitter.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got spoiled squirrels in the backyard that they gotta fill their trough every once in a while.
That's great. Aw, that's a good to do for your like Snow White community, all the birds and all the squirrels. All right, so let's talk about beer, specifically homebrew beer.
I love beer. It's been, I haven't had a beer. It's been almost exactly 1 year since I've had a beer. Um, but I absolutely love beer. Like I drank beer in my, early days just because like you're like, oh, I'm gonna slam a bunch of beers and get shit faced,
Right.
And then one day I went into a bar and was like, I think I was hungover or something, and a friend of mine was like, I want a pitcher of Guinness, and I was like, I don't know what Guinness is. I drink PBR and natural light. And I was
Oh
like, that's
God.
what I drink.
Okay.
And they brought this thing over to the table, and it's like, Guinness is just thick black, and it had like 4 inches of white foam on the top. And I was like, what the hell is this? There's so much foam on it. We can't drink this shit. And he's like, just shut up and let the foam die down a little bit. Poured it. First couple drinks, I was like, oh, whatever. And then I just was like, this is good. Like, it actually has like flavor and taste, And so I started like, oh my God, there's craft beer, What is this stuff? And, fast forward a couple years, I always loved all that. And then DAG come around, and there's always people brewing mead and all sorts of stuff. And I was like, I should make beer randomly one day. And if you remember Guanin at all, him and I hung out like all the time. Like he would be over at my house all the time. And he was like, that's a great idea. So we looked it up on the internet, and I went out to whatever store it was, and I bought like a starter kit. It was like a 5-gallon bucket and like some hoses and shit. And we were like, oh, cool. And we made beer, and was like, this is amazing. And I remember, because it's got an airlock thing on the top, and it would bubble, and I stuck it in the closet, and I kept hearing something like, what is that? And I'd open the door and look at it, and the little thing's bubbling. And then we bottled it and bottled it after like a week or something, and then let it sit, because you have to let it sit for like 2 weeks before you can drink it, and then refrigerated it. So it was like the waiting period in there was bad. Like I sat there and was like, I cannot wait to try this. And it was like, it's going to be so bad. It's going to be the worst thing ever. I remember Warren came over. We popped the top on a couple of them, pour them into glasses, and started drinking it. And we were like, this is the most amazing thing we've ever put in our faces. Like, it is so good. I don't know if you've ever had a homebrewed beer, but the yeast in it there's a flavor that the yeast has that gets filtered out when they filter the beer, because all beer is pretty much made out of the same stuff, it's basic ingredients. That yeast that's in it, when they filter it, it filters out this flavor that you can only get when you pop open a homebrewed beer and drink it. And I can't explain the flavor, but it's the flavor of the yeast itself. It's not like the beer flavor. So every craft homebrewed beer will all have this one little flavor to it. So then for like the next 2 or 3 years, I brewed so much beer at one point. I had a spare fridge in my garage that was completely full. I would put all of them in milk crates, all my bottles in milk crates. I had 2 stacks of milk crates that were as tall as the refrigerator next to it that were all full of beer. And I remember I went to one DAG event, and I brought all of our gear to the event, went home, filled the car full of beer, and brought that back to the event and took it down to the Grove when we were out at the farm, and had all these milk crates set up. And I was just handing it out. Like, please, for the love of God, take the beer. It's free.
Yeah.
Because it was just like, at one point, I was like, I can't drink any more beer. I have drank so much. And it was like, not even drinking it to like get a buzz or get drunk. I was just every night just like, this is good. And I stopped drinking pop and was like just drinking homebrew. And I was like, I have to stop doing this.
Right.
Like, I'm going to like die or something. Like, I'm drinking so much homebrew. And it got to where it's like, I don't even really get drunk anymore. I just drink 2 or 3 a night because they're good. And it's like soda pop,
Right.
And well, then when our son was born, we ended up moving in with my mother-in-law in a bigger house. and she had two bigger dogs that were long-haired, really hairy dogs. Well, like hair is horrible for beer. Like if it gets in, like when you put put it in like the bucket or the vat to like ferment it, if there's any contaminants in there, it will ruin the whole batch.
Oh no.
And I had two batches in a row where basically were ruined, and I found like you'll find something like a dog hair or something in it, and a bunch of the yeast will like attach itself to it. So you'll find like a clump of something. And I found
Oh.
like two batches in a row, and I was like, I can't brew here.
Right.
Between having a toddler in the house and the dogs and everything else, and I was working like 70 hours a week overtime, I had to stop.
Yeah.
And then the next house we moved into, our kitchen was like the size of it was the bathroom in the house that I have now is bigger than the kitchen at my old house.
Wow.
So like I was going to brew beer, and I remember bringing my ferment bucket up to the kitchen and setting it down and looking around, and I was like, there's nowhere for me to wash bottles. Like I didn't even have room to like put enough bottles to bottle beer on the counter. So I would just put it all away, and I was like, I'll do it later. And I mean, that was about 6 years ago, and I haven't touched it since.
Aww.
But I was gonna start doing a little bit more, but then now she can't drink, and then I stopped about this time last year because I just wanted to try something different, health related.
Yeah.
And it's been pretty good. It wasn't like, oh, my life is off the rails and I need to go to rehab, because I'm an alcoholic, and I drank a lot. But I mean, that's how I've always been. That's how I grew up. And it's always been like, well, I need to stop now for a while or whatever. And then, but I kind of, about this time last year, I kind of woke up and I'd gained a ton of weight over COVID, and I'd been heavy for a long time. I was like, I need to do something different. I'm just going to stop drinking for a while. And
it's been good for you?
Been good. It's been good so far. I mean,
good.
I will say that edibles are great.
Yay Missouri, yay legality.
Yeah. I don't do that much, but it's good. It's good. But no, it's the hardest part for me was like, especially for a really long time. Sorry, my dog's walking around green screen. For a really long time, like sitting down playing video games with my friends, like Oberon and I, like that was, we would sit down on a Friday night and get just absolutely hammered and play video games together. And that was like our week cap off, where you're like, I'm going to blow off steam, kind of get rid of the stuff for the week. So that was kind of our, my Friday night ritual was like, let's get super shit faced and play video games till 5 a.m. And
right.
Well, I don't really. It's about the same thing. I'm just not as hungover on Saturdays now, So
still 5 a.m, but not as shit faced. Yeah. Well, you should definitely try home brewing again. I've seen your kitchen.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I mean, I still have all my stuff. I've got stuff to make mead and things like that too. I'm giving it a little bit of time, and I'm really busy right now. I've always got a million. You know how ADHD kids are. I've always got like a million things going on. It's like, what is it this week? And
I totally understand. Put it on the docket. Don't forget about it.
Fix my thing.
Fix my thing. His dog is super cute. I was just saying your dog is super cute.
He's super old and geriatric. He's a grumpy old man.
Let's talk about avocados. That was probably the funniest thing on this list that I saw.
I've tried for so long. I really want to like avocados. I see them. I see guacamole, and I'm like, I really want to like that. And I can't. I don't know what it is about avocados, like the texture, and there's some taste to it that it hits my tongue and I'm just like, this is gross. I can't do it. And I've tried. I sat there in the kitchen one day. I got an avocado and I cut it in half like you're supposed to. Because I was like, I don't even know how to eat this thing, you know? And she's like, oh, you cut it in half and you pull the thing out. And I cut it in half and I just took a spoon and I was like trying to eat it. And I'm just like choking this thing down. I was like,
No, you gotta
I can't.
put it with
I
something
can't.
else.
And she's like, no, put it on toast. So I tried it on toast and I've tried about everything. And every once in a while, like I'll get a guacamole that I like that I'll eat, but it's like really modified. Like, because a lot of guacs are like, oh, it's avocado with a little bit of onions and a little something. And this will be like, yeah, we use like a whole lime and like, you know, a bunch of other stuff in it too. It's more like salsa than it is guac.
There's might be an avocado in there. We're not sure.
So here's the thing though. Like, I don't mind avocados. Like, you can put them on stuff, whatever. But I spent some time in California working. Everywhere you go out there, they put avocado on everything. Like, you can't go, except for maybe In-N-Out Burger, you can't go get a cheeseburger without a damn avocado on it. And it was so bad, I'd be like, no avocados. I just got to where I would say that on everything. You know, you get a Taco Bell, you're like, no avocados, or, you know, wherever, unless it's like McDonald's or In-N-Out or something.
Right.
But here in the Midwest, you know, we didn't really, you know, I didn't even grow up with avocado. We didn't even know what they were.
Yeah.
But we eat a lot of sushi. And I ate sushi for years and only saw maybe 2 things with avocado on it. And now, every time we go to get sushi, I'm scrolling through a menu and I'm like, do they make a damn roll that doesn't have an avocado in it? And the other day, I'm like, do they even have avocados in Japan? Like, what is this? Why is it on every single thing? So, like, I get it. People like it, but it's like, can you not put it on every single sushi roll? You know,
cucumber and sushi rolls. Just why do you have to put
like, oh, just take it off? It's like you can't take it off because it's like a tomato, right? You put a tomato on something, the juice gets on there, and and I can't really eat much raw tomatoes because I'm like,
I don't like
kind of allergic to it, but I'm not like, if I eat it, it really messes with my stomach.
Right.
It's raw. But if you like a salsa, I can eat a salsa, but I can't like take a slice of tomato and eat it.
Right.
I'll throw up. Like, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
If you cook it, you stew a tomato, I will eat that whole thing. I love it. I wished I could eat tomatoes because they look good. But if you slap a piece of tomato on a cheeseburger and you pull it off, it's still going to taste like tomato.
Yep.
You know, same thing with avocados.
Yep.
So there's my hatred for avocados. Stop putting it on all the damn sushi rolls, okay?
It's so funny because avocado has gotten this rap for this bougie lifestyle, you know, and it's because of California that it's got this bougie lifestyle tacked on to it.
I'm telling you, I don't know if you've ever been out there, but they put that shit on everything.
Like, I like avocado.
Like, do you want like guac with your fries? I'm like, no, I don't want guacamole with my French fries.
Right.
Like,
yeah, I don't like guacamole. A very modified guacamole, like you said, but I don't like guacamole. I will put an avocado on like some sort of sandwich. That's fine for me, like the slices, but I can't do it all mushed up and and I'll do it in sushi. The only time
I've really eaten it to where I'm like, you know, I could eat this regularly was, I don't really like white bread. I like my bread to be chunky, like beer, you know, like I want my bread to be like the Guinness of bread. Like, the darker and chunkier it is, I love it. And so I buy a lot of that kind of bread for myself to make like toast and stuff with. And if I put it on that, but then the bread kind of overpowers the avocado, and it's just like throwing, like, at that point, I'm just putting it on there for nutritional value, not really for flavor. Might as well just be chucking peanut butter on there at that point.
Explain this chunky bread, like sourdough or like?
No, just like whole grain.
Oh,
you know,
okay, I get what you're saying now.
You know, like the artisan
really
whole grain. Me. Well, when you're eating it, there's like grains and stuff in it. You know, like you're crunching on stuff.
sesame seed, not
And I'm the
sesame
only
seed.
person in the house that likes sweet bread, so I'll buy it and like nobody will touch it, which is kind of nice. But
Yeah, the triple oats with
mm.
added sunflower seeds and
Oh yeah,
all
yeah,
that
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah. I could tear that up. It's good.
Um, let's talk about the Kardashians.
Ooh. I will start this off by saying I don't know very much about the Kardashians, like at all. Um, I just used them as an example of I don't like pop culture like icon influencer types like the Kardashians or I I don't like them enough. I can't even name like a bunch of them, but when I see them, it's like the how to explain it? Like the Jersey Shore type people,
Mm-hmm.
where it's just like they're just kind of over the top, not normal people,
Mm-hmm.
like you see the typical like LA over the top, eccentric, famous person, and you're like, why is this person famous?
Right.
And it's like, oh well, they did this thing and now they're like an influencer or something. You're like, well, I don't give a shit. I don't give two shits why this person's, they're kind of a moron,
Right.
but
Right.
that's just kind of me. I just don't like, I don't know, I don't like the whole like if you're going to be famous, if someone's going to be famous, I think they should be famous for doing something, being worthy of being famous, not just like, oh,
Existing.
yeah, existing, but I also don't like a lot of like modern like pop stars, I guess, like musical pop stars and everything, because they just, their attitudes and I don't know, just the way they carry themselves and everything, the way they present themselves, I just don't like it. uh
So we're
I don't
talking.
like the effect they have on society really either.
So what about like Gaga and T Swift?
I don't really know much about them. Like Taylor Swift seems kind of decent. She seems like a decent person. Uh, but she also isn't constantly. The only time she's really in the media is like, oh look, she's having a concert and 5 billion people showed up. So I'm
Right.
like, cool, no problem. That's fine. Like Lady Gaga, she's weird, but she's also she's not like how to explain it. She's not like on TikTok like doing a bunch of stuff like I don't know how
No,
to
you
explain
make
it really.
perfect sense. Like she's
You
not
know?
advertising herself as such and needing to
Yeah.
be more famous by putting herself out there on TikTok and things like
Yep.
that.
It's like if you're famous for something, be famous for that thing. Like
Right.
if you're an actor, be famous for being an actor. You know, don't start making a jackass out of yourself and don't like when it's really hard to explain.
Don't go over the top. Don't
I just
over
yeah.
advertise yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like people are always talking about like Cardi B, and I don't know a whole lot about Cardi B, but I kind of looked some stuff up and I was just like, I don't really like this person, just the way like they carry themselves, the way that they act towards people, just
Yeah.
that attitude of I'm a superstar and nobody else is,
Mhm.
but I'm also going to influence people, normal people, to have that same attitude. And to me, that kind of degrades society a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
I can be an abrasive person, but overall, generally in public, I'm a pretty nice person. And I think you should be nice to people and just whatever. But if you got pop stars out there that are just like, we don't give a shit, I don't, it's just, like the pop stars I grew up with, like Mariah Carey or something, whatever. Like she was great, carried herself well, and seemed like a good person. And a lot of the newer pop stars like that, the newer like social media icon pop star type people,
It all feels like a
they're
reality TV show.
yeah, exactly. It's that over the top kind of over exaggerated everything.
Yeah. So we're gonna
And
switch
that, you know what?
gears. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Just one more thing on that. One thing that kind of really bugs me is like a lot of young people look up to people like that, and it influences the younger generations. And
Yep.
we don't have a lot of like heroes that we used to have. We have these pop TikTok icons that are kind of degrading that younger generation.
Yeah, don't get me started on TikTok. That's a hot topic.
That's the old man in me speaking. So yeah.
No, TikTok and pizza are the two hot topics on Wiki Wednesday, so we don't touch those.
You're gonna have to introduce me to some Jersey pizza.
Oh, thank you. I will. I absolutely will.
I love a good pizza.
So this was my favorite one on your list. I know I said avocado, but this one takes the cake. Why in the world do you have over serious bicyclists?
So, I used to, when I was like 19, 20, or around that era of my life, I worked for Sonic Drive-In a lot. I was a manager at Sonic Drive-In. I worked at several different ones. And I used to drive this road all the time. It's Blue River Road is what they called it. And this road follows a river, and it's real windy. And it's a real fun road to drive. It's great, but it was one of the quickest ways to get from this one Sonic to another Sonic, right? These two stores. And so I would take this road all the time. Well, this road, for whatever reason, it's a 2-lane road. Off one side, it's like a cliff that goes into the water, right? And on the other side, there's like rocks. There's nowhere to pull over. Cops don't go down this road because there's nowhere to pull anybody over. They don't give a shit. They might, there's like a state park things every once in a while where you could pull in and go sit at the river. Whatever reason, bicyclists love this freaking road. And there's never one or two of them. There's like 10 to 20 of them.
Oh, God.
All the time, random times. And it's always when you're in a super hurry.
Right.
And you're going down this road and you come around a corner and you're like, oh shit, you gotta like slow down. Well, these guys are doing like 15 miles an hour at the most. Like that's top speed for them. And you're like, speed limit's 45 and I'm in a hurry. Right. So I'm talking like, and I was driving a Japanese sports car-ish car at the time. And I'm just like, I'm going places. And I'd be like, honk the horn, like, hey, can you guys scoot over a little bit so I can go? And like, they turn around and give me a dirty look or like, give me the finger or something. And I'm like, well, fuck you guys.
Yeah. And
you can't really go around them because you can't see around the turn. So you're stuck behind bicyclists for like 5 miles and you're like, and there'd be cars piled up. And just the attitudes these guys would have and just be like, we're vehicles. I'm like, I'm in a fucking car. You're on a bicycle.
Right.
Like if I really wanted to, I could just bump your back tire and ruin your whole fucking day. And they would always just have this attitude. And I'm just like, well, fuck you too,
Right.
And just over serious bicyclists though. You always see them and they're just like riding on their bike, like in their spandex and everything. And you're like, I like riding a bicycle too, but you're like taking it to the next level. And it's always like some, early 50s, like office, super suit guy who's, in spandex with a really long helmet, cruising like 30 miles an hour down a road. And you're like, cool. You look absolutely ridiculous. I'm sure it's a cool hobby, whatever people want to take offense to it, but you look like an idiot. All right. You really look like something out of an 80s music video and you act like a jackass.
Right.
Like if I'm on a bicycle and there's a car behind me and I can obviously tell they want to go around me and I'm annoying them, I will get the hell off the road because they're a car and I'm a bicycle. You can call it a vehicle all you want. It's a damn bicycle. So
right. And especially
that's
to
my
do it in a group.
Annoyance with. Yeah. Oh yeah, like a pat, and I don't know, and it was always random times. It wasn't like there was never signs up like we're having a bike ride. It was just like, I guess a bunch of people that would like start riding somewhere and they would all just kind of like converge together and just be like, we're going down Blue River Road. Like out of all the roads, why this one? The one that nobody can go around you.
Right.
Like that makes you an asshole. Like
I agree.
They've got the things, it's like it's the Reddit things where it's like, am I the asshole? It's like, yes, this
Yes.
is what makes you the asshole. So
that might be one of my favorite rants that I've had on Wiki Wednesday. Okay, is there anything, I know I moved around a lot on your list. Is there anything specific on your list that you really wanted to talk about that you feel like we didn't really get to touch?
no, I mean, that covers most everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
I mean,
right.
that's most of my hobbies and stuff like that. That's a pretty good,
Mixture of you.
I mean, you know me from the Dagger Here days and everything, and I mean, a lot of my like close friends know me personally more, like, Oberon and Mike and stuff. But like, a lot of the other people, like streaming friends and stuff like that, and some of my other friends, like a lot of them don't know much. I keep myself pretty reserved.
Yeah,
I
well,
try to anyway.
this will be available on YouTube, so if they ever want to go ahead and check it out, listen to it in the background while they're at work or whatever, they totally can. Thank you so much for coming on. This was a lot of fun. I'm really happy that you had a chroma key, that you're the first person that I was able to do that with.
Well, I don't know what happened. I had something electrical happen down here the other day, and it killed a couple of my lights. My computer shut down, a bunch of crazy stuff. But a couple of my light bulbs stopped working or something. And I fired up my chroma key, and like half of it worked and half of it didn't. I'm like, what's going on? So I was like 2 minutes before when you sent me that message, you're like, where are you? I'm like running around, turning the lights on, like moving lights, trying to get my green screen to work. And I was looking at Facebook, like, has she sent me a thing yet? And then I look over and see a Discord thing. I'm like, oh shit. So.
She sent me a thing. Well, awesome. I'm so happy you were here. I'm so happy that you were able to come on. I am going to look right now and see if there's anyone that we can raid, because I actually fixed my raid command, because after Galvos completely switched over my SSD, I lost everything.
Oh,
I didn't lose everything. I just lost like my presets and stuff. And so OBS, I had to completely start over with OBS. Oh, thank you for the sub.
Yeah.
How timely.
I had the notification sitting there all night, apparently.
We are going to go over to Sarcasm and Shots. He's doing an international rescue committee 12-hour charity stream. So I want to make sure that yeah, not my fault. Okay. I want to make sure that we go over there. Yeah, thanks so much, Chris, for sticking around. Guys, this is the raid call. Please, that's not a raid call. This is a raid call. Make sure you go ahead and copy it. It's real generic because I made it right before stream. Again, thank you so much for hanging out, and thank you, Kane, and I will see everybody around next week. Raid now.
Later.